Oh, oh, but they dong dong bang bang a booty booty yeah yeah zippity bang bong bang bang ooh 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 na 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 bang bang go I need in the moon moon in the nine boom 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 boom.
What is this? What is this? How you doing, folks? Lame Malia coming to you from FEMA region number 3. It's autumn time, my favorite time. I love October, November. What am I going to talk about today? Well, I think I'm going to tell you a little story. Little story about when the man tries to take things into his own hands. It never works out too well, does it? It's never worked out good for me when I did that. How about you? Elohim tells us all throughout his word, throughout the scriptures. If you do it the way I tell you to do, you'll be alright. If you want to do it your way, you're going to have to take what goes with it. And this is a little tale about the ticking of the clock. And like many stories, it starts out with a question. Do you know who that is? That is a fellow by the name of Robert Lamb. And he became prominent in the late 60s, more so throughout the 70s, even to this day, with a little outfit known as Chicago. Saturday in the park. I think it was the 4th of July. Well, he wrote another great song, which he titled with a question. Now, it's an excellent song, but even more, an excellent question. A question, I believe, to be one of the most important that we can ask ourselves today. Does anybody really know what time it is? Only one, my friends, our Elohim. And I believe that mankind has brought a curse upon itself for failing to recognize that fact. Have we respected the times, laws, and ordinances of Elohim? No, we have not. In fact, we have done everything in our power to change and or do away with his times, laws, and ordinances. And have we been cursed for doing that? Absolutely.
Say it again.
Absolutely. Polly, put that kettle on. Whew.
That was good.
Yes, it was. I do truly believe that man has done evil in the sight of Elohim, seeing himself wise in his own eyes by seeking to alter Elohim's Moedim, or appointed times. And one major example of this is this: daylight saving time. Ugh, makes my blood boil. Don't get me started. Now let me tell you something. Even when I was a kid, and that would happen, this moving up and back again at a clock, I sensed inside that it was wrong. I felt it inside as a little child. I somehow knew that it was against the right way of things. And it is, my friends. It should not be. Man says unto himself, Self, I'm not satisfied with the amount of sunlight we have in a day. I want more. Smack vap. And it's not Joshua, mind you, praying for Elohim for help in battle. No, this is carnal man wanting to be his own God. So is it surprising that we have scriptures that read as such? Matthew 24:36. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. And we got Mark 13:32. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. Now, going back for a second there, now I believe that Yeshua knows now. I can't really picture the Savior going into the Father. Abba, today? No, son, not today. Now, I just kind of don't see that happening. I do believe that Yeshua knows now what the hour is that he's coming for us. But regardless of whether he knew the day or the hour when he walked amongst us as a man, what he assuredly did know was that we couldn't know the day or the hour because we were going to corrupt the times, laws, and ordinances of Elohim. Now, of course, we understand that the Feast of Trumpets was referred to as the feast that no man knows the day or hour, but we do have to take today's world into consideration with its daylight saving times and time zones, etc., etc., bada-bee, Then you're going to have your scoffers that think that all this is no big deal. Well, here's a couple of scriptures that you can smack vap them with the next time they say that it's no big deal. We got Ecclesiastes 3:1, very famous passage here, folks. I just put the beginning because, to everything there is a season and a time for every matter or purpose under heaven. That's from the Amplified version of the scriptures. And Jeremiah 8:7. Even the stork in the heavens knows her appointed times, and the title of the swift and the swallow, no matter if they're from Capistrano, observe the time of their coming. Now, this is not quantum physics, people. You do not have to be Michio Kaku to comprehend what Elohim is getting at here. Even the birds and the fish, the porcupines, the wildebeest, whatever. Elohim puts it in them to know how things are supposed to work. When to migrate, when to hibernate, when to dig a hole and get in it. They know. And how do they know? Because it is a moed, an appointed time of Elohim. Turn the page. See you, Michio Kaku. All right, now. If the scriptures we just read ain't enough for 'em, check these out, Cookie and Kaku. Psalm 8:3. When I view and consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have, what? Ordained and established. Ay, ay, ay. And Psalm 104:19. He appointed the moon for the seasons. The sun knows. And here's the kicker, my friends. The sun knows the exact time of its setting. You get that? The sun knows the exact time of its setting. And these psalms are from the Amplified version. Carnal man don't much like these scriptures, do he? No. And surely the Antichrist, the son of perdition, the lawless one, won't like 'em either. As a matter of fact, the great Daniel had a little something to say about that. Hello, Daniel. Daniel in 7:25 wrote this, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. It's right there. That's the old King Jim. Now, the first time in recorded history that man takes it upon himself to officially institute the changing of time was to conserve energy, and that was brought on by something that Elohim just loves. War. World War I, to be precise. And by the way, the date that World War I started was July 28th, 1914, which just happened to be that year, the 9th of Av. Now, the countries that first instituted this blasphemous garbage were Germany and Austro-Hungary, and they just happened to be the countries that lost. But before they lost, they insisted on starting daylight saving time on April 30th, 1916. Now, I want you to put April 30th in your back pocket. Very prophetic. Don't worry about so much the 1916. Just keep April 30th in your mind, okay? Now, within weeks of Germany and Austro-Hungary doing so, Belgium, Denmark, France, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Sweden, Turkey, and Great Britain adopt daylight savings time. Mind you, this is a world war. Now, what country is conspicuously absent from this list? Could it be the United States of the Americas? You see, folks, the people of the U.S. did not want daylight saving time, just like they didn't want involvement in this European war. But just like the double-minded nuts that we are, what did we do? We elect an idiot to be president that does the exact opposite. That's right. Because of double-mindedness, Elohim gives us exactly what we deserve. And what we deserved was him. Woodrow Wilson. Globalist. White supremacist. Yeah, that's right, Democrats. Look it up. And unfortunately, 28th President of the United States. And contrary to the supposed will of the people, daylight saving time is signed into law for the first time in the U.S. by him in March of the year 1918. There you go, folks. The leadership of the U.S. follows suit with the foolish leadership of Europe. And isn't it ironic how over the years we're kind of like doing the same thing again, trying to be like Europe? A dog do its own vomit. Well, like Europe, the U.S. fails to trust in the provision of Elohim and signs daylight saving time into law. Now, what else, pray tell, comes along in March of 1918? Well, it was this. The flu pandemic of 1918 into 1919. It was more famously known, of course, as the Spanish flu epidemic. It infected 500 million people across the world, including remote Pacific islands and the Arctic, and killed 50 to 100 million of them. 3 to 5% of the world's population, making it one of the deadliest natural disasters in human history. The first confirmed outbreak in the United States, if not the world, was at an army base in northeastern Kansas on March 11th, 1918. The flu quickly spread across the country, where 2 million troops were mobilizing for the war in Europe. The soldiers carried the flu with them when they shipped out, introducing the virus to France, England, Germany, and Spain, all countries that adopted daylight saving time. Now, notice this here, folks. Look at this. The flu was carried over to Europe by troops. Perhaps now that President What's-His-Name is sending our troops over to Western Africa with the Ebola, maybe they'll bring it back. It's already here, so enough said there. The horse is out of the barn, my friends. I want you to notice two other things on this slide here. Take a look at March 11th. I want you to keep March 11th in your back pocket with April 30th. We'll get to it. And I want you to take a look at this here, too. Look at the months that the pandemic peaked in 1918. October and November. Just keep those things in your back pocket. The flu pandemic of 1918 came to an end in 1919, as did daylight saving time in America. The U.S. Congress went against Wilson's decision to extend the law due to its what? Overwhelming unpopularity. There you go, folks. They also stopped that idiot from doing the, the League of Nations. Unfortunately, that horse is out of the barn, too, and we got the United Nothing. But then, an unspeakable judgment on this country, my friends, and I don't mean only World War II. I'm talking about that FDR whatever you want to call them. And did you know, and you can certainly be a Berean and Google this yourselves, that the Delanos were opium traders? Well, the Kennedys had the booze and the Delanos had the drugs. Well, that's how they made them. Well, that's a whole other video. This person institutes year-round daylight saving time from February 9th, 1942 to September 30th, 1945. He extends it 10 days later. On February 19th of 42, this person, who also refused to allow over 900 Jews to enter the U.S. in order to escape Hitler, he signed Executive Order 9066, which called for Japanese Americans to be placed into internment camps. Today, I guess they would be considered FEMA camps, wouldn't they? In December 1982, the Congressional Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians issued its findings, concluding that the incarceration of Japanese Americans had not been justified and based on, and get this, Democrats, here's your hero, race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. There you go. There you go, liberals. Two of your progressive heroes, Wilson and this piece of chaff. Both of them racists. Look it up. And isn't it ironic, or should I say prophetic, that right now a mysterious virus called Entero D68, seeming only to inflict little children, is producing symptoms very much like polio. Food for prophetic thought, my friends. I won't. Now, from 1945 to 1966, there was no federal law regarding daylight saving time, so states and localities were free to choose whether or not to observe daylight saving time and could choose when it began and ended. Now, this understandably caused confusion. And since we know that Elohim is not the author of confusion, who do you think, pray tell, might be behind daylight saving time, huh? Now, I wouldn't exactly call him Shaitan, but this next mug certainly brought on a lot of confusion. Yeah, you know who he is. In 1967, the Uniform Time Act, signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson, established a system of uniform daylight saving time throughout the U.S. and created daylight saving time to begin on the last Sunday of April and to end on the last Sunday of October. Look at him. My friend Zeus Marshbender, he calls him Lyndon Bang Johnson. Now, remember the first date that I told you to put in your back pocket? Recall that the first ever in history daylight saving time began on April 30th? And in 1967, the first year that the times to set the clocks up and back were made mandatorily uniform in the U.S., the last Sunday in April just happened to be April 30th. Let's take a closer look at this 1967, the first year that daylight saving time starts to resemble what we know today. Now, old Lyndon Bang seems to be the polar opposite of the spirit of this 1967, a spirit that would whisper into the ears of many a young baby boomer the hypnotic words, turn on, tune in, and drop out. Put flowers into their hair and lead them to the corner of hate. Yeah, and Ashbury. Right to the corner of Haight and Ashbury in San Francisco, California, and what would become known as the Summer of Love. Yeah, right. Now, this is a picture of one of the original posters from the era, and don't tell me it don't have prophetic implications. Look at what it says at the bottom. Look at the zoom in there. Mind expansion and what? Signs of the times. Oh, Elohim, Elohim. Well, while all the love was going on, there were a few other events, like Apollo 1. You get that? Apollo number 1. The first planned, or I should say man-planned, manned lunar landing program. All 3 astronauts, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, all were killed. And it was due to a cabin fire. During a test launch, a cabin fire. Didn't even get off the ground, people. And the summer of love is also the summer of Bonnie and Clyde, the most violent movie made up to that time. And while even more love was being freely given, Lyndon Bang was freely giving more troops to Vietnam. In 1967, he put more troops over there than at any other year during the war. How about that? How about that? And as many of you know, 1967 brought war to the land of Elohim, a 6-day war. And it was during this war, my friends, that Jerusalem, the Kodesh city, was restored unto the land of Elohim. And to put the icing on the 1967 cake, this year was also the host of the first half of, you'll never guess, that's right, a blood moon tetrad. The inaugural moon was April the 24th, Passover, 6 days before daylight saving time. There you go, my friends, 1967, ultra prophetic, and it literally destroyed the presidency of old Lyndon Bang Johnson. Moving on, march it on. Ho ho! Lordy, lordy. So far, 3 Democrats. Here's our first Republican. Or was he? You know, I could never understand that the Democrats wanted this guy out of there. I mean, what kind of Republican starts the Environmental Protection Agency and opens Communist China? There you go, my friends. Richard Nixon, father of Walmart and the dollar stores. Due to the energy crisis of 1973, precipitated by an Arab oil embargo against the U.S., on January 4th, 1974, President Nixon signed the Emergency Daylight Saving Time Conservation Act. There's a mouthful, which put the United States on daylight saving time for the 15-month period, between January 1974 and April of 1975. He should not have changed the times of Elohim, my friends, because 6 months and 23 days later, the House Judiciary Committee passes the necessary articles to impeach Richard Milhouse Nixon. And that day just happened to be July 27th, which just happened to be the 9th of Av. Now, let me tell you something. Nixon's downfall smack rap right on the 9th of Av. Amazing. And his downfall was extremely tragic for Israel. Now, regardless of Nixon's highly publicized and perceived anti-Semitism, Golda Meir referred to this man as her president because of a phone call she made to the White House in the middle of the night during the Yom Kippur War of 1973. Richard Nixon promised full support for Israel against all her enemies because of something his devout Quaker mother told him. She told him when he was a child that if he ever had the opportunity to help the Jewish people, he'd better do it. And he did it. Now, the tragedy, the big major tragedy for Israel on the 9th of Av, 1974, was the fact that Richard Nixon would no longer be the president. He resigned, Nixon, who vows to Golda Meir to stand with the land of Elohim, is gotten rid of because of a cover-up of a third-rate burglary. Gerald Ford takes over, loses the election because he pardons Nixon, and so the next elected president, hey, the vote is this incompetent ninny, who on top of it all hates Israel. And look at the title of this book that this piece of chaff wrote. Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. Ugh. Smack that. You know, it's not bad enough that he puts the word apartheid in the name of the book, but he uses the word Palestine. There's no such thing as Palestine. So was Watergate just a tragedy for the U.S.? No. It was global. Or else the event that brought on the only U.S. president to resign would not have happened on the 9th of Av, the most sorrowful day in the history of the Jewish people. A man who vows to protect Israel falls while one who hates Israel comes to power. It is so very unfortunate. Mr. Nixon, who helps the people of Elohim with one hand, disrespects the Moedim of Elohim with the other. And as a result, we are stuck with this peanut ninny. Get him out of here. Now, since the year 1967, daylight saving time remains set as the last Sunday of April to the last Sunday of October. Until, oh, this breaks my heart. President Reagan signed the Federal Fire Prevention and Control Act of 1986 into law that contained a daylight saving rider. The starting date of daylight saving time was amended to the first Sunday in April, effective in 1987. He extended it. Oh, honey, say it ain't so, but it be so. Now, as stated, the act does not go into effect until 1987, so daylight saving time is still the last Sunday of April in 1986. So in 1986, daylight saving time is on April 27th. And less than 24 hours prior to that, the planet had a bit of an experience. If you're not sure what that is by the picture, it was this. Chernobyl, April 26, 1986. Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. Quite an experience, eh? Less than 48 hours prior to this disaster, what do you know? There was a blood moon. Yes, indeed, my friends, 2 days before the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, the moon is turned into blood. Now, we're still in 1986, and daylight saving time ended that year on October 26th. 1 day later, Pope John Paul II and a group of his buddies organized the first World Day of Prayer for Peace in Assisi, Italy. Assisi. Did you get that? Think about it. You'll get it. This is on October the 27th of 86. In all, there were 160 religious leaders, or whatever you want to call them, spending the day together in fasting and prayer to their god or gods. I guess that's what it said in the program. And I'm sure the world became a much better place after these morons got together, eh? And look what happened the last time something like this happened. Remember? Wasn't too long ago, was it, my friends? When the cowardly feline Shimon Peres, Mahmoud Abbas, and there he is stuck in the middle, Jorge the false prophet right behind him, that tree that they planted. Yeah, they got together and they had their prayer for peace, mingling Elohim's name with false gods. June 8th, 2014, 1 month later to the day, there's war in Israel, July 8th. They prayed for peace. 1 month later, they get war. 1987. And guess what that is? It's a Shemitah year, my friends. It's a Shemitah year. And this is the year that the change in time took effect, remember? And less than a week before the end of daylight saving time that year, the largest one-day percentage drop occurred on Black Monday, October 19th, 1987, when the average fell 22.61%. And here's the part of the story that I love the best. There were no clear reasons given to explain the crash. You think maybe the Shemitah had anything at all to do with it, my friends? And boy, oh boy, it breaks my heart. Like I said before, to remember that this all happened during the course of Mr. Reagan's presidency, until I found out that he had actually changed the ordinances of Elohim by altering his times. I thought the biggest mistake that Ronald Reagan made was picking George H.W. Bush as a running mate. And speaking of that, why don't we just drop the H and bring on the W? Oh, W. Well, you know, his predecessors, one of course being his daddy, and the other a draft dodger who got impeached, they didn't mess around at all with daylight saving time. No. From 1987 to 2007, it stayed as the first Sunday of April to the last Sunday of October. But W couldn't leave well enough, or perhaps bad enough alone, could you, W? Because on August 8th, 2005, George W. Bush signed the Energy Policy Act, which changed daylight saving time from the first Sunday of April to the last Sunday of October to the second Sunday of March to the first Sunday in November. He extended it. Not a good idea. Because 2 weeks later, on August the 23rd, 2005, something begins brewing approximately 350 miles east of Miami, Florida. What could that have been? Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina. On August the 29th, 2005, 6 days after formation in the Atlantic, the waters of Katrina breached the levees of New Orleans. It is the costliest natural disaster as well as one of the 5 deadliest hurricanes in the history of the United States. Katrina is the 7th, get that, the 7th most intense Atlantic hurricane ever recorded. Fatalities, 1,833. Damage, 108 billion. Perceived indifference on the part of the administration has tarnished the George W. Bush presidency to this day. Now, when the Energy Policy Act went into effect in 2007, a very influential entity emerged from the mind of this man, Mr. Steve Jobs of Apple. And what was that entity on his mind? That's right, the iPhone. Now, Aradon, Yeshua HaMashiach, in Luke 21:28, told us to look up and lift up our heads. But Mr. Jobs, with his iPhone, has managed to con everyone into, well, just look at the people in the picture for a minute. It'll hit you. Just hope it didn't get you. Now, remember when I told you to put a couple of things in your back pocket with April the 30th? Well, those 2 things were the date March 11th and the months that the Spanish flu pandemic peaked, because they amazingly tie in with modern daylight saving time. Oh, yes, they do. Note again that in March of 1918, Woody Wilson signed the very first daylight saving time into law in U.S. history. In 2007, the year our latest daylight saving time law went into effect, the second Sunday in March just happened to be March 11th. And from 1967 to 2007, the end of daylight saving time was October. From 2007 to present, it has ended in the first week of November. And the peak months for the pandemic, well, they just happen to be October and November. Man, oh man. Just a little more food for prophetic thought, my friends. Just a little more food. And by the way, 2007 also gave us Putin. Moving on to 2008. In 2008, oh, a big prophetic year, my friends, a biggie. Daylight saving time ends on November 2nd. 2 days later, Obama is the president-elect. Now the scoffers might complain, come on now, the elections are always in November. Yes, that's right. That's right, but remember, until 2007, daylight saving time always ended in October. So Barack Hussein Obama was the first to be elected since daylight saving time started to end. Started to end. There's a good phrase. There's a sign right there. Started to end in November. And by the way, on the first full day as president elect, which was November 5th, 2008, the pick three in the city of Chicago, his city, was 666. No comment necessary. Getting on with it. 2009. Now, exactly 1 year to the day, November 5th, daylight saving time, having ended on November 1st that year, was the tragic and sickening day that U.S. Army Major Nadal Malik Hassan murdered 13 and wounded 43 at Fort Hood, Texas, in the largest mass shooting ever at a U.S. military installation. And even though his praises to Allah could be heard loud and clear by his victims, the U.S. Justice Department categorized the incident as workplace violence. Don't get me started. Now, between the years of 2011 and 2014, prophetic events continue to occur close in proximity to either the start or finish of daylight saving time. And I can still hear the scoffers. Laban, you're just talking about daylight saving time in the U.S. But what about the whole world? Well, for the last 100 years, people, the U.S. has been the whole world. For the last 100 years, ironically, since the end of World War I, when daylight saving time was first, made a law in the U.S., the world economy, the culture, the entire global zeitgeist has been set by this country, the United States. It was that way biblically, too. Elohim used Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, the great ancient empires, to gauge world events. Everything revolved around their rule in their day. And as for the last century, Elohim has used the U.S. as the world's barometer. And so we must look at these events, which have had global impact, through the clock of America. And so now that that's out of the way, let's get with it. In the year 2011, daylight saving time begins on March 13th. And boy, oh boy, this date is smack vap right betwixt two of the most prophetically cataclysmic events in recent times. Two events that are in the news and will continue to be right up to this very minute. March 11th, 2 days before daylight saving time, an earthquake measuring 9.0 in magnitude strikes Japan, triggering a tsunami that kills over 15,000. This event also triggered the second largest nuclear accident in history and one of only two events to be classified as level 7 on the International Nuclear Event Scale. Fukushima, my friends, and like Chernobyl, there's not much that needs be said. However, here's something pretty interesting. Chernobyl, largest nuclear accident in history, 1 day before the start of daylight saving time. Fukushima, second largest nuclear accident in history, occurs 2 days before the start of daylight saving time. And once again, both are classified as a level 7 on the International Nuclear Event Scale. Only two have reached that level, and both were within 2 days of the start of daylight saving time. Now, I said there were two cataclysmic and very prophetic events that sandwiched daylight saving time in the year 2011. Fukushima on March 11. Daylight saving time was March 13. 2 days later, on March the 15th, was the beginning of the Syrian Civil War. March 15, 2011 to the present. And it don't look like it's going to end anytime soon, my friends. Let me tell you, when I first started looking into all this and I saw that Fukushima and the start of the Syrian Civil War were both within 2 days of daylight saving time, I thought, oh, Elohim, how you must abhor the changing of your times and laws. And can it be stressed enough how integral this date of March 15, 2011 is to the plan of Elohim? This date ushers in the catalyst that will bring to fulfillment the prophecy of Isaiah 17:1. The burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. And that is the old King Jim. Oh, what an Elohim. Start shouting Maranatha right now, folks. Start shouting it on this one. This struggle to remove Bashar al-Assad has been raging for over 3 years now. So how much closer are we, brothers and sisters? Oh, Maranatha. Now, moving on to the end of daylight saving time 2011. Take a look at this. On October 31st, 6 days before the end of daylight saving time, another slap in the face to our Elohim on this one, folks. UNESCO votes to admit that made-up land called Palestine as a member. 107 supported it. 14 opposed. Remember, folks, the name Palestine was made up by the Romans as an insult to the Jewish people because it refers to their greatest ancient enemy, the Philistines. It's the only reason for that name. The fact that no one realizes this simple fact of history is part of the great delusion of the end times. UNESCO. They should have stayed up a tree with those nutty dwarves. Oh, sorry, that's Nabisco. Now, this is also, this date, this October 31st of 2011, the same day that is selected by the UN as the symbolic date when global population reaches 7 billion. 7. October 31st. Happy Halloween. 2012. Marching on, marching on. Well, now that we know that all that stupid idiot stuff about the Mayan calendar turned out to be just that, let's take a look at what did come down the prophetic pike that year. All right. Daylight saving time in 2012 begins on March 11th. There's March 11 again. Now, for this one, I'd like to bring back our old friend, Michio Kaku. Hey, Kaku. Something about this guy I just seem to like. You know, I'm praying for you, Michio. I'm praying you'll come to Yeshua, Mr. Kaku. I'm not going to give up, but I digress. Now, on March the 10th, just one day before the start of Daylight Saving Time 2012, reports of a most important and ultra-prophetic new technology begin to surface in newspapers and on the web. And listen up, Mr. Kagu. It was not a smartphone. It was not Google Glass or the most advanced of 3D printers. No, no, no. It was this Iron Dome. On March the 10th, 2012, the Jerusalem Post reports that the system shoots down 90% of rockets launched from Gaza that would have landed in populated areas. Now, folks, out of all my research into the events tied to daylight saving time, the introduction of Iron Dome technology is the only positive one. And praise Elohim for this miraculous and prophecy-fulfilling marvel of Israeli technology. You got it, Fritzy! On October 29th of 2012, less than 1 week before daylight saving time ends, this is the result of this. Sandy, a raging monster of a storm that became one of the most destructive in U.S. history. At 8 p.m., the storm center comes ashore near Atlantic City, New Jersey. Now wait until you hear this one, folks. The surge is worsened because of the full moon. Because of the full moon, which added about a foot to the surge. And because Sandy just happens, that's right, just happens, to arrive at high tide. Man, oh man, how lost does a person have to be to see all this and still not believe? Elohim help him. In the United States, Hurricane Sandy affected 24 states, including the entire eastern seaboard from Florida to Maine, and west across the Appalachian Mountains to Michigan and Wisconsin, with particular severe damage in, of course, New Jersey and New York. Fatalities, 73. Estimated damage, 65 billion. Moving on. 2013. Are you ready for this? You ready for this one, folks? Because I believe with all my heart that the year 2013 was the year that the end really began. I'm telling you, I know it. The point of no return for this fallen world. Now, the events that occurred in close proximity to daylight saving time in the year 2013 are absolute turning point events with regard to Bible prophecy, and the utter enormity of this first one, I tell you, I cannot express it completely. Daylight saving time 2013 begins on March the 10th. 3 days later, on 3/13/13, this man is introduced to the world. Brothers and sisters, I've said it before. The false prophet is here, and that's him. And he stepped out of Revelation 13 on 3/13/2013, 3 days after daylight saving time begins. And out of all the events that I have shown in this presentation, this is the only one that occurred 3 days after daylight saving time. 3 days. Now we know how Satan the impostor must somehow mimic the plan of Elohim. 3 days after daylight saving time, 3/13/13, this man is upon us. And it ain't good. Daylight Saving Time 2013 ends on November the 3rd. There's another 3. And on this day, the signs that were sent by Elohim were signs in the Shamaim. 3 to be precise, and precise we shall be. And I might add that they came on the exact day of the end of DST. Now let's see. Sign in the Shamaim number 1. The beautiful harbinger, Kamaraisen, crosses the orbit of Earth. Sign in the Shamaim number 2. Along with the Kamaraisen, 3 other comets, Lovejoy, Enki, and Linear, appear in the sky and become visible to the world all at the same time. And according to secular astronomers, 4 comets in one night, an opportunity too rare to be missed. And number 3, the appearance of an extremely rare event called a hybrid solar eclipse. Now, how rare is this? David Dickinson of Universe Today, on October 28, 2013, less than a week before the occurrence, he wrote this: of the 11,898 solar eclipses listed over a 5,000-year span from 1999 BC to 3000 AD in Fred Aspenak's 5 Millennium Catalog of Solar Eclipses, only 569, or 4.8%, are hybrids. Oh, 3 signs in the Shamaim, sights too rare to be missed, according to even secular science, all on the same night, November the 3rd, last day of Daylight Saving 2013. And now here we are, my friends, 2014. This year, Daylight Saving Time began on March the 9th. The night before, at 12:41 a.m., the weather for air travel between Kuala Lumpur and Beijing was good. However, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappears into thin air, and it's still gone. So what? So what are the next time we fall back? Fall back. Too ironic a term for words on this day, my friends. Fall back 2014 occurs on Sunday, November the 2nd. 2 days later, the midterm election. What will happen, my friends? What will happen? Did Pelosi prophesy back in September when she told Bill Maher that if Republicans take the Senate, it would be the end of civilization? Well, for once, Nancy, I hope you're right. And Mitch McConnell, I hope you're rallying your troops, 'cause I'm ready to go to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Are you looking up, my friends? Are you heeding the call of the Adon, Yeshua HaMashiach, to look up, to lift up your heads? Or are you one of these people? I pray without ceasing these days. And if you are one of these, I pray that you will see that time is very short. Look up and away from this world while you still have a chance. And in a couple of weeks or so, if things are still as they are, when you reach for your clock to fall back, humble yourselves before our Elohim. And remember this: